Okay, hello and welcome to episode three, Popcorn for Dinner, the Rings of Power reviews. We are now on episode four of the series, which is actually the halfway point. So it's me, Chiazo, today, along with Priscilla. So this episode was called this episode was called The Great Wave. Any initial reactions, Priscilla?
Um, it was a bit of a letdown from last week. I can't lie. I
Right.
There were elements of the episode I really liked, really liked, and there were other bits where I was just a bit like, we'll expand on it because my general criticism is based on all the four episodes so far. But it was a bit of a letdown.
Okay.
Last week was really good.
Yeah. I guess there has to be that context of the facts that we're halfway now. So any of our hopes and dreams for the series really should have started appearing by now. Now, what's funny is that I have to be honest. For the audience, I kind of enjoyed it. Now, that could be for a number of reasons, including alcohol. That isn't, which is, which isn't the greatest way to judge an episode,
What
but
did you
it's really
drink? Tell the people, what were you drinking?
unless they give us a sponsor, unless they give us a sponsorship. I won't be saying the name. I won't be saying the name, but I'll DM them. I'll DM them and ask them if they want a cheeky, advert put in. But a certain alcoholic substance, it
Was
seems,
consumed.
was consumed and seems has affected my judgment of the episode because I actually saw it got not marked down quite badly, even on Amazon's own site. I don't know if you like watch it on the smart TV, you can see the ratings it's given before you press play, and this was I think 2.5 stars out of five, or 3 stars, sorry, which again would say very average, about 3,000 votes as well. So not amazing, but let's get into it. Let's get into it, and obviously I'll give the things that excited me, and it's quite possible that I just glazed over at the more boring parts. So we start off with the Numenorian Nigel Farage talking about elves taking jobs. That and he made some good points. In this economy, can you imagine you're trying to get work,
The cost of
and
living crisis.
there's this immortal being that doesn't age, doesn't get tired, doesn't even sleep. I mean, it's kind of mad. It's kind of tight for men out there. So obviously, there was a bit of an anti-elf rally to start with. Now,
It
I mean
was it
that
was
being
giving the Trump rally. It was giving build the wall, build the
yeah,
wall.
yeah, and hey, look, man, they were loving it. They were loving it. It was a bit crazy. It was a bit crazy. I mean, we had those Tories last episode as well, but anyway, this is not a political podcast. This is the Lord of the Rings. So, I mean, what did you make of that? Did you feel it actually added anything to the episode? I mean, with it being the opening salvo, any thoughts on that particular point?
Do you mean the entire dream that the Queen Regent had, or that specific part in general?
To be fair, maybe I should have gone straight into that because after the rally, obviously Muriel does have that dream, and that's where, for those that don't know, I mean, it's not a spoiler. It should be common knowledge that Numenor eventually sinks. That's why that line of kings is broken. It wasn't only with Isildur's death. And Muriel saw this great wave happening, and then woke up from her dream. So yeah, we can mix that in. Maybe the whole Brexit, Numenorian Brexit thing was supposed to be a funny scene. I didn't really find it that funny, but who knows what they were going for there. But yeah, tell me what you thought about the dream.
I thought it was quite interesting. Apologies for guys for my voice this week. I've had the flu, so I do sound like an orc. I
Oh,
apologise. But literally, I think it was an interesting dream because I think it made me understand her position as to why she was so scared when Galadriel did come, because she
Mm.
realized, crap, this is the first domino that falls before the whole place sinks. I
Yeah,
think the
it's a good point.
scariest bit, and I was really surprised that they did add it in there in the first 2 minutes of an Amazon Prime show. I don't know. I'm surprised they've got the boys on that streaming site, but it was the babies on fire. That's
Yeah,
when I realized, oh, this is real, because obviously they live a long time. They don't obviously live as long as elves do, but they do live
yeah,
longer than men. So
yes,
they live quite a few hundred years, and you're now seeing babies being burnt, and you're like, oh, whoa, 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 like, okay, this is real. Like, I've always, obviously, you always acknowledged, you knew it was gonna be put underwater and stuff. You always known about
mm.
it when you read and watch the Lord of the Rings series, but to actually see something like that, that's what made it all the more real for me, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah,
And I can completely understand the hatred towards the Alps. I completely understand, because in your head, I'm going all psycho Bible therapist speak here, but you're
mm.
associating the elves with something bad that's going to happen, and that's an understandable reaction. Hence why she throws her ass in jail, and it's like, you
Yeah,
know what, I want to put my head in the sand. So, yeah, it was very interesting. I really loved that they put that in. That was one of the best bits of the episode. That entire dream sequence. I knew it was going to be a dream. I
yeah.
knew it wasn't going to be real, but
Oh yeah,
it does give a good. It's like a prelude to what's going to come.
yeah,
It's
absolutely,
sort of like,
absolutely.
do you remember in Game of Thrones when Daenerys has the dream of visionizing the Iron Throne, and
Yeah,
she almost touches it, and then she wakes up from the dream?
yeah.
That's what this felt like, and I actually quite liked it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good premonition, and I mean, you mentioned, getting into psychology bag, the association, as well. So the falling of the leaves, um, the petals of a white tree falling is seen as a very big deal in Middle Earth. Like when that happens, it's no joke. What's coming, which sets us up nicely for the end of the episode as well, so that they build that association that judgment is coming, change is coming, and to be honest, even the whole anti-elf thing, when you feel that your very existence is being threatened, then the only reaction is fear, or should be fear anyway, because that's just normal. Everyone wants to live. So yeah, yeah, and it goes further to enforce the the tetchiness that she has towards Galadriel, which she tolerated right up until Galadriel said, "Well, if you're not going to deal with my request, this is in terms of getting an army put together, then can I speak to your father, the one with real authority?" Which obviously pissed off Muriel
That
to
wasn't
no
smart.
end. Yeah, and Galadriel finds herself in jail. Now, we know that the episode does jump around quite a bit in terms of going from place to place, but what I think we'll do, we'll kind of complete the story on Numenor, and then we'll go to the other sections of the show. I did notice it looks like, unless again through my slightly inebriated eyes, it didn't look like they do the transition thing anymore. Have I just imagined that? The map transition where if
Oh
they're at Numenor and then
yeah.
they want to take us, they didn't do that once, did they? I'm just thinking about
I
that.
feel like they're like, oh, y'all know where this is, man. Like, we don't need to tell you anymore.
Oh,
But I really liked it though. It was such
yeah, I think it was such a
a
good
little niche
feature.
thing. Yeah. Like, oh, where are
Yeah.
we going today? It's like Dora the Explorer.
No, but I don't know. I thought it was cool, and it's quite annoying to introduce a certain element into the show, or a feature of the show, and then just removing it without warning, despite the fact that we are still jumping around between all these realms. I don't know. I think every Lord of the Rings fan enjoys looking at the map of Middle Earth and other places. So yeah, it was kind of it was a bit of a letdown. I know it's got nothing to do with the episode itself, but yeah.
No, your
Oh,
feelings are valid. If you're upset about it, you're upset about it.
well,
And
thank you,
that's
Priscilla.
okay.
I appreciate that. Right. Okay. So yeah, so now she's obviously she's in jail with Hellbrand, who basically taunts her. It's like, well, your mouth was always going to get her in trouble. So again, they're kind of still referring to Galadriel as this headstrong, stubborn person. The tempest is within me, and all that, and all that good stuff that we know a lot of fans aren't entirely happy with. I mean, how are you seeing that character development so far? Does it? I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel in terms of how she might change into who we see in Peter Jackson. I mean, did you have any thoughts on that? The fact that she doesn't seem to be softening at all, really, or getting wiser.
I think this is going to be a multi-season thing.
Okay. Yeah.
I would prefer it to be that way. It would really haggle me if she all of a sudden became a kumbaya, peace and positive vibes by the end of the
Mm,
season. As long as she makes she's made small little changes to herself. I think listening to Elrond and all those little things. I think
yeah.
her sort of.
Right.
I think she's done small things, but I think as long as by the end of the season that there is a sense of that there's a lot like I can see where the development's going, then
Mm,
that's all right. I think by the end of the show its entirety, I expect her to be almost either 80% of the way there of what she is in the Peter Jackson's installments for Lord of the Rings and in the books, basically what she's like generally in the books for what we know her as mainly. So I'm not too mad at it. I actually quite like that she's headstrong. It's quite funny. Um, I think that she's got a bit about her. She's got that dog in her. I rate it. Like she rates herself, and
yeah.
I think what probably maybe what I gain sympathy for her is because she is right. She's
Yeah.
warning y'all about Sauron and these orcs, and no one's listening to her. And
Yeah.
I think that's why. If she was, I think people don't really know what they want because I think some people were going in thinking she was going to be a Mary Sue sort of character,
Yeah.
and that's been completely spun on its head within the first 10 minutes of the first episode. And I think
Yeah.
people
True.
now are trying to find something else. I think there's genuine complaints and criticisms that we've had about the ledger. I mean, me and you have talked and gone into detail about it,
Of
but I feel
course.
like people have gone from like, I don't want her to be a Mary Sue. Then when she's not a Mary Sue, then it's like, oh, but she's too headstrong, she's too this, and I'm like, well, she is. I mean, then what do you want? I feel like they've perfectly balanced it. She's not listened to people. She listened to Half Brand perfectly in that episode and understood that, you know what, let me keep my mouth pim. I'll still do what I want. She did what she wanted at the end anyways, but she did hear
Yeah,
him
she did.
out. She did what she wanted, and she looked badass doing it.
Yeah.
But at the same
We'll
time,
get
she
to
did
that.
hear him out. She understood that, you know what, like maybe I need to pattern the way I'm speaking to people, and she actually heard him out. So
Mm.
yeah, all in all, like I think there are some criticisms there that I have about her. I think I do want to see a little bit more development, and a little bit more, her changing a little bit. But at the same time, I'm not that mad. It's not like the be all and end all of everything. I don't want her to be all. I don't even want to use Gandhi as an example, but I don't want it to be all like peace, love, posy vibes. The girls who have like them like signs in their rooms and they've got all the fairy lights and they've got
Oh
all
god,
like they got incense
giving me
burning.
PTSD here, man.
I don't want that.
Yeah, no, look, it's a fair point, and it's possible. There's no denying that Rings of Power has turned into something where there's a lot of hate watching going on. So, people are just tuning in to talk about all the things they don't like about it, rather than take the show for what it is. And obviously, we knew that Galadriel would be a really hot point for these criticisms, regardless of what she even if she was Galadriel straight away from the Peter Jackson versions, people would say, well, there's no character development. So, yeah, we definitely have to take those criticisms with a pinch of salt and try to take the show for what it is, which is what we have been preaching from the start. But oh well. So back to the episode review. Um, so again, we'll just stay on Numenor for a bit, but now the side piece of Numenor, which is a slight element that I feel I'm starting to struggle with in terms of interest. So this is Isildur, and because when I say the side pieces of Numenor, even though these are major characters, I mean I'm talking about Elendil, Isildur, the sister, Farazon is the beard guy, and now they've introduced his son. And I have to say, at this stage, I'm not entirely sure what these characters are doing in this story. Now, this could be a slight gap in my knowledge of the Second Age or a younger Isildur, but the whole um, becoming a sailor thing. He makes a mistake because he hears someone whispering in his ear, um, which we know he'll have a problem with soon enough because the ring also whispers in his ear and he gets completely distracted and does whatever he wants. I don't know if they're setting it up. I don't know who was calling his name, but he gets distracted and him and his two other friends are kicked off the boat, so to speak, and their careers are basically gone down the drain. Now, I know they're trying to build this up as a big deal, but yeah, I'm sort of struggling to get the importance of this particular storyline. And I'm not just going to be like, well, it's Isildur, so I'm just going to follow whatever happens. What have you made of these side characters? So, the people that aren't Muriel, that aren't Galadriel, that aren't Halbrand, but Isildur and his friends and family. How did you find that?
I think Isildur.
She was in love with him last week, by the way.
I still
Um,
am. I still am. I still am. I still am. I still am. Uh, Obviously, a certain character in House of the Dragon has taken over him, but that's a conversation for a
oh
different
my
day.
days!
That's a
All right.
conversation. Kristen, call me, or Frankie, who plays him, call me.
Oh my
But
days!
um, I think you're on the right lines in what you were trying to say. I think they're trying to set up um, what he was going to be like when he's older. The
Yeah.
fact that he's very impulsive. I think Valendil, his friend, basically says to him like,
Yeah.
your father's always given you, everything you wanted. Like the only reason why you're in this position of power is because of your dad, and then essentially that's what happens. His dad
Yeah.
passes, and he only gets the ring because his dad's dead, etc. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I think they're trying a way to set that up to basically
Yeah.
go, oh, that's why he is the way he is, rather than because I think in the prologue, and it's a very good prologue in the Fellowship. Like, don't
Oh
get it
yeah. So
twisted,
I think it's one of the best ever.
one of the best ever. But the prologue, you don't you don't really get to know Ilsador as a person. You just know he did what he did, and that's it. And I
Yeah.
think what they're trying to do is basically flesh it out a little bit more and go, you know what, he's actually always been like this. He's always been a
Mm.
little bit hot headed. He's always been a little
Yeah.
bit impulsive. He's always been a little bit had his father, grant him everything he's all sort of wished for. He's never really had to work. I'm putting in, if you're not watching the video, I'm putting quotation marks. He's not really worked for anything in his life. So I think they're
Yeah.
trying to set that up. Whether they're doing it successfully or not is a different conversation because I don't think they are. I think
Mm.
they sort of what they're doing wrong is that I don't mind Isildur having a side story in this because I think he's a pivotal part,
Yeah.
but you've got to at the same time make him prominent because this is not just any person.
Yeah.
He holds the ring
Exactly.
at the end of this.
Exactly.
So obviously not the end of this show. I don't know if they're probably gonna go straight into the battle, I think. So by the end of
Mm.
the entire show. So like he's an important character. And I
Yeah.
think this is a general criticism I've had so far watching the show, is that they've struggled to give each side plot enough amount of prominence for it to mean
Yeah.
something. There will every episode one storyline will, like this week it was obviously everything that's going on with Galadriel and Halfbrand, and you know what I mean,
Yeah.
and they struggle so much with stretching it out so everyone's receiving the same amount of prominence. And that's a
Yeah,
general thing I've had through watching it. I thought about it and I was like, let me not say, let me wait till halfway. But yeah, they really struggle with it. And I think they need to learn the balance of it properly. Because
of
if you
course.
want to do this storyline with Ilsa, I don't mind because I think that's very interesting. And I think it'd be really cool to see, to
Yeah,
know, his human psychology and why he is the way he is. I like that. I'm not mad at it. That's a good storyline to have. And I think it's the smartest thing to do because you've got the
yeah,
material there from the actual book. So just use it and just flesh it out a little bit more. But
absolutely.
they've made him seem so redundant.
Yes, he's like a side
He's
character. You
like a
know,
side plot, like a side, like like a Patrick Star. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, and yeah, like he doesn't seem. It's such a weird word to use, but like, do you see this guy becoming king, having the ability to lead people into battle? Like, I know that that's where like character development comes in, but they need to give us something. I think it's a very bad sign for a show where I feel like every time I see his face, the episode has, basically the plot has stopped, and I have to get invested in this guy trying to become a sailor, and I'm just not. I want to see how Galadriel gets back to Middle Earth. It's been 2 episodes now. It looks like it's finally going to happen. Um, you know, the obviously the story of Isildur in this case is slightly fabricated, so it's frustrating that you have the ability to kind of make up any side plot here to flesh out this character to make us invested, interested. And yeah, it's just not working at the moment. And I think the addition of other characters, so his friends, for example, I'm not saying they don't or shouldn't exist. His sister as well, like who did nothing but go wide-eyed this episode without really saying anything. I think got moved to by Farazan's son. Like I'm like
Yeah,
I'm not getting the points of these scenes, and I feel it's really slowing down the story. And it's like for a lot more tension to be built around who the stranger is, and then for us to not see the Harfords at all. But I have to watch Isildur's sister get flirted with by someone I don't know. Elendil having hardly any lines. Um, it's not great. The king in the tower as well. Okay, he pops his eyes open. Hopefully that leads to something cool. But yeah, this episode, unfortunately, wasn't the best. It doesn't feel like the best executed. Now, in my view, anyway, when we go through the sections of these stories, we will come back to Numenor. Actually, no. Let's just finish Numenor off, and then we can move to the other side. So, today's episode covered Khazad-dûm and the Southlands again, and I think, to be honest, the Southlands is the only thing holding this series together at the moment. Every time we see Orandir, who is a fictional character, which anyway, wow, they've got the real characters and they're not doing things with them. But anyway. Um, so yeah, Khazad-dûm. We've got Elrond. We see Celebrimbor again. They've agreed to start building this tower. There's Mithril. The two Durins are a bit paranoid about something. We see Durin the Fourth's wife sing to the stones to try and rescue the dwarves, which again was a bit of a pointless scene to me. But uh, what did you think?
I think the dwarves sort of scenario thing, that whole thing, I didn't mind it.
Okay.
I quite liked, when Elrond came in and he was like, "Oh, like 20 years is actually too long." Yada yada yada. Like
Yeah.
I did quite like it. I can't. I'm not gonna sit here and lie. I actually did like it.
Okay.
I
No, fair enough. Please tell the audience why, because I'm gonna struggle here, but we need some
um
positivity in this
I
episode.
I don't know. I've got such a bias for Elrond, so this could generally be what the reasoning is.
Okay.
But it was actually interesting seeing like even as something as simple as seeing the mithril that we obviously see later on in the series when what's
Mm,
his face Frodo uses and Bilbo uses and stuff.
yeah,
So that was also interesting. That was a nice little callback. That's probably why I liked it.
yeah,
But
yeah. That's true.
I actually think seeing Prince Durin, obviously not the king, um,
Yeah,
seeing him, I just lost my train of thought now. Oh yeah, so seeing him sort of clock on, I think it's him realizing that he's being investigated by Elrond.
yeah,
That
yeah.
whole that made me laugh. That was the one time I
Yeah,
laughed,
that
and
was fun. That was
that was
fun.
really funny. And I think it sets up quite a good thing because I think like it's obviously really interesting to know that they're mining and like the king doesn't obviously what doesn't want them to do it because they're risking everything. And I think the thing Elrond tells Prince Durin at the end of it, which is basically like your dad's actually right, like you shouldn't be risking everyone for everything. I don't know, I think it's just seeing the dynamic between Elrond and Prince Durin that I actually liked. I was just laughing and it's the only
Yeah,
thing that I enjoyed. It made me happy. That's probably why I'm just
yeah.
incredibly biased.
Yeah, it was a bit more of a whimsical part of the show, for sure. That dwarven elvish chemistry
Love hate
when they get it.
relationship.
Yeah, exactly. Which is always entertaining. Which is always entertaining to watch. I think maybe where my feelings come from is the frustration at the story not necessarily moving forward, because
This is where I agree with you. I feel
yeah.
like I
So I
like
have less
it.
tolerance for a ha ha ha
I know what
kind
you
of
mean
section.
because it's weird because I had less tolerance for it with Ilsador. I don't know if
Yeah.
this is just me having a general bias with elves and dwarves that I didn't
Maybe, hey,
care.
biases are allowed. I mean,
And so I
people.
think that's probably why, because like they weren't moving the plot along in any sense or imagination, but it was
Yeah.
quite nice to watch. And I don't know, but yet with Ilsador and that whole side plot thing, I was pissed off. So I don't know what that says about me. And considering I find him attractive, even that wasn't winning me over. Yeah,
There we go.
you get Prince Doran and King Doran and Elrond, and I'm like, yay!
Yeah, yeah. Hey, look. We're allowed to have biases. I mean, people love to pretend that they don't have biases, but that's just a bunch of nonsense. We are here to enjoy, and we like the things we like. So whatever. But yeah, so just to finish that, I mean, again, I can only talk about the moments that like stood out for me. So and given that this was like a sort of whimsical part, I mean, let's. I'm going to give them a chance with this whole. I said how the dwarves falling into well, that mining accident basically. Maybe it was like a foreshadowing that they're already going a bit too deep. They've seen the mithril now. That stuff, looks good. We hear the words of Sauron. The dwarves delved too greedily and too deep. What they awoke in the darkness of Khazar Dûm. So maybe this is what they're teasing, which is fine. I'm praying it's that, but this is my way of giving them a chance.
Credit.
But again, yeah, your tolerance as the show goes along, um, goes along, and you know what? To be honest, like it does kind of remind me in a way of Game of Thrones, even when it was really really good. Um, I don't know if you watched them all at once or season to season. The reason I'm bringing
I watched it season to season, so when it first
So you
aired.
waited. You waited, right? Yeah. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up is that I'm wondering if something similar is happening where there were certainly moments between seasons 1 to 4 with Game of Thrones where it actually felt like they were teasing too much. Like the White Walkers, like going all out, I felt was teased for almost like 5 seasons. That this is all leading up to something. Daenerys is eventually going to cross the narrow sea and all that kind of stuff. So, but the reason why it was such good TV is because even the side plots that were happening on ground whilst we were waiting for these major events were still amazingly captivating. Um, and I don't, and we always said that the comparisons are going to be inevitable with this show, but I don't think Rings of Power quite hitting that same balance. You know, the side plots with Isildur and Durin, Prince Durin's wife asking if he's got another girlfriend. I mean, I'm just like, oh, come on, guys. But then we get the little, we get the accident with the dwarves, and maybe they're teasing that. But I'm only saying that because I am a fan of the other movies. Mithril, dwarves maybe getting into trouble because of how dig they're deeping. If this is your first encounter with Lord of the Rings, this means nothing to you. Like, you're just inferring. Like, I'm inferring, sorry. Whereas other viewers might not be liking it so much, or maybe they've not even put that together. I mean, I doubt it. If you like a bit of Tolkien, I think these are simple conclusions to reach. But yeah,
No, I think you're
um,
right. I think you bringing up the Dragon Show, Game of Thrones, was spot on, because essentially, like, with I just lost my train of thought now. Essentially, what made seasons 1 to 4, at 5 it became more fantastical when you added the White Walkers in.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think what
yeah,
made 1 to 4 so brilliant was the political gameplay. It
yeah,
was you all, and also what made it even better. And I think this show's shown it, but not like I think it showed it last week. Definitely, the stakes were high.
mm,
You were seeing a
yes,
big death. Like
yeah,
you didn't know. I remember watching that year on year, and I was stressing my little self out, not knowing who
yeah,
was gonna die. Like, even though I've read the books and you know what's gonna happen, but to actually visually see it, like the Red Wedding, for example. If you've never read the books and that's the first thing you've ever seen of Thrones, it's huge, isn't it? And
yeah,
that was not even a major plot point on the show. That was
exactly.
as a side plot that had a big crescendo right at the end. This
Yeah,
wasn't
it
like,
felt significant.
it felt like the stakes were high. And I think where Rings of Power are going wrong, and is that they've not set up the small plot lines properly. They're doing it for about 60% of them, to be fair. They're doing it to 60% of
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
Southlands, Halfoots, all that stuff, they're setting that up perfectly
yeah,
fine.
yep,
Uh, But I feel like they need to do better, because I feel
yeah,
like if you
definitely.
set up the small plot points perfectly, like, we know the stakes for the Southlands are going to be so high because we're now invested in it. In
Yeah,
Arendelle, who is a character who does not exist in Tolkien lore. So you
yeah,
can do it. It's just you've got to extrapolate it everywhere else. So I feel
yeah,
like
yeah,
if they nail the small plot lines for everything well, when it comes to the end of the season and when the stakes are really high, like, you're going to be stressed. Like, I'm stressed for Arendelle now because I'm
yeah,
invested in
yeah.
him.
I care about the character now.
I care about him the same way I care about Elrond.
Yeah,
Same way I care about Theo, I care about Branwyn, I care about all these characters, because the stakes of, like, when Theo was getting chased by that, my heart was pumping. I thought, right,
yeah,
don't let, when he was stuck in that well, I thought he was gonna grab him. I was shook, but that's because you've set it up perfectly fine. So I
yeah,
feel like where they could have learned, I don't know if they need to nab the early Rise of Thrones or nab Miguel, because Miguel's not doing House of Dragon for season 2. Just nab
yeah.
someone from that show,
That
or
knows how to translate this stuff.
exactly, or I don't know, whoever's writing the Southlands plots, if it's not the same person for everything, make that one person write it for everything else. I don't
We
know
we
who's
said
writing.
it. We said it last week that it felt like one of the reasons why it's so easy to divide this show when we review it is because it feels like three completely different directors. Like, you don't feel it's like the same person doing all these scenes.
Exactly.
It's ridiculous how, like, for me, if this was being teased to me as a kid, and someone's like, Isildur, you're gonna see young Isildur in this and all that kind of stuff. And Isildur's, like you're talking about with plot lines, Isildur's stakes is, oh, are you gonna be a sailor or not? I'm like, I don't care. I don't
But
care. Like,
there's a way to do that sailor plot perfectly. That could
the
be
writers have to write. The writers have to
so
write properly.
if
It's not
they
my
did
fault.
the sailor thing, and
Hmm.
from the start of the season, from the very start, to the very end, and then you get the little instances of him hearing voices, him getting shook, him wondering, oh, like, what's this, him talking to his friends not listening to him. Like, if that went on continuously, and then the
Yeah,
end result at the end of the season was him and his friends get fired, because that was not
yeah,
going to affect the plot line of everything else. If him and his friends then got sacked at the end of the season after you've invested so much time into rooting for him to being a sailor and all that,
exactly.
that would have been perfect. And if anyone compared, I would have fought them, because that's literally character development.
Oh,
You're literally
yes.
watching from start to finish. Like, oh my gosh, you're rooting for him to be in a sailor. Oh my gosh, he wants to make something of himself. Make it clear that when he's talking to other characters, like, I want to be, like, I know I got here because of my dad, but I want to be better. Like, I want to improve myself. And if we watch that play, because there's only 8 episodes, if we watch that play out and then he got the sack in the 8th episode, I'd be heartbroken. Because I'm like, I've
Yeah,
watched you for about 7.5, 8 episodes striving to be this guy. You've wanted to be a sailor. You're only doing it because your dad asked you to. And then you want to make him proud. You keep trying. You keep hearing these voices. No one is understanding you other than yourself. You can't speak to your dad about this because he's going to look at you like you're crazy. And then if he got sacked, then it would be like, okay, like, this is
yeah.
sad. The stakes are
Chamber of
high.
Secrets. Build it up for 9 months. Why is man hearing voices in his head? Why are these weird
Exactly.
things happening around me?
I hear voices
Build
in
it
my
up.
head.
Yeah. Like, no, no, you're right. Because something that could easily have been dragged out for an entire season was sort of started and then ended within 10 minutes. Like, I'm afraid the show hasn't given me any reason to care about Isildur trying to become a sailor. Like, I don't care. That's it. Like, when, which I'm sure is supposed to be a sad scene, like his friends turn on him, they've not given us enough there. They've not, these voices have just come out of nowhere now. Like, how is it going to affect him? What's he going to be doing now? Because you've introduced him as someone trying to become a sailor or whatever. And I'm sure this word sailor is probably wrong, but again, that's what happens when you barely care about the plot point, because we're struggling here. Um, so yeah, like, and it's frustrating. It's kind of like in football where you see people, they're professional, paid to do this stuff, and you, the casual fan, can see ways that they would improve instantly, and that's frustrating. You are supposed to be better than us. You are supposed to be the professionals. You're supposed to show us why I'm sat at home watching this and you're getting to do all the writing and directing, um and it's not coming, unfortunately it's just not coming across. And I think just the throwaway scene, Elrond and sorry, not Elrond, Galadriel and Halbrand escaping from a Numenorian prison. I mean, what's that about? It's not a good episode, is it? Um,
I
I don't
told
know what you
you.
thought, but I mean, that's kind of wild. Like,
The
you
only
can't
thing
just.
I was interested about that was how he sort of betrayed her.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
was the only thing. That's when I thought, because he was
Mm,
all gassing her up and telling her the tea and say, you know what, girl, here's the gist, right? You need to stop doing this, and this. It's like a parent-teacher conference, and he's basically
yeah,
telling her what you can't, what you're doing well, what you're not doing well. Basically telling her, like, you're talking to men, like, you need to be like, you can't come in all guns blazing, telling her you want to speak to her dad, like, you've got to have a bit of, have a bit of decorum. And
yeah,
then
yeah.
to see
But
him tell Farazad, oh, like, why should I let her go? And then he goes, oh, but I could, if you know where she is, like, it won't be a problem. And I'm like,
yeah,
you sneaky git.
servant of Morgoth, indeed. And again, that's a lot more interesting than another made-up character who I'm enjoying more than the characters that are actually real and we're excited to see. Anyway, so we'll leave that there. And again, the savior of the episodes, Arondir in the Southlands. And we've got Theo and Brownwind becoming a lot more prominent as well. So, any initial thoughts on that? We also, of course, it starts off with Adar being finally revealed. in that as well. And actually, before you even get into that, I've just got to get this in. The orcs are unreal, absolutely ridiculous. I cannot believe how good. Sorry, excuse me. I cannot believe how good the orcs are. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna stop there.
I heard one of the
Yeah.
Yorks in on the show is the one from the original movies. I thought, oh, that makes sense because I could tell.
Oh,
Yeah, I could tell.
okay.
But in regards of Brownwyn and Theo, that was the most interesting storyline throughout the entire episode. It had
Yeah.
me
Oh,
hooked.
start with Adar though, because it starts
Ada.
with yeah, Arondir still kneeling in front of Adar's now revealed.
So
We see who he is. We see his face.
my mutual and I were having this conversation when episode 3 dropped, and he was
Yeah.
saying how he thinks it was Sauron, and then I kept saying no, it's way too bloody obvious for it to be
Yeah.
Sauron, like way too obvious. They're not going to be that blatant with it. Like he is a
Yeah.
deceiver. Like you're not, I was right because he had the elf ears and everything, which makes me think,
Yeah.
oh, what's that elf called begin with a B? Oh, flipping it! I feel like I need to Google search it. But there's an elf begin with a B. He's one of the bad elves. Oh, it's
Oh
really
no,
annoying me. I've got the name in my head,
no,
but
I
he
cannot
knew
help
way
you.
too much
Don't brain
about
a
where
friend.
Aaron. He knew way too much about where Aaron is from and everything. Like,
He
and I
did.
saw his
Yeah, he
ears.
was questioning where were you born.
There is a
His
word,
ears.
and what's gonna happen is that by the time we finish filming this podcast, I'm then gonna remember. I'm then gonna text you. I'm gonna get pissed off, but that's besides the point. But see, Ardor was very interesting. Like what I felt watching him throughout the entire episode, and I was trying to see, and also reading social media responses to him as well, was that it seemed like he thought that if he gets the side when he told Arundel like, oh, you need to go back and get the men and tell them like if you like listen to Sauron again and rise up from Morgoth again, you're gonna get what you're owed basically. It seems
Mm,
like he's working for him to reinstate himself to be what he
yeah.
used to be because he looked all mash up. So I
Yeah.
think
Which is not normal for elves.
it's not more of else. So I think I don't know if he is that. This is just me theorizing, by the way. He may not be
Yeah.
that at all. We don't know who he is. But I think whatever he is, he's trying to reinstate himself and try
Yeah.
to get himself back into a position of power. And he feels like the only way he's ever going to be able to do that is to work with Sauron. So
Yeah.
it's very clear that he is not Sauron. Very clear. So that was very interesting. I
Okay.
really loved that storyline. I thought it was quite interesting to see how it ties everything up, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So when like we know that when Arondir gets back to the watchtower, etc., like we know what the stakes are now. Now the stakes are really bloody high, like really high. And now you're
Yeah.
scared because you're thinking, oh crap, like if Arondir doesn't get these men on side with him, he's in big trouble. And that's why they did that bit very well. Because now
Mm,
I'm shook. I'm anticipating the next episode to see what's actually going to happen here. Are the men actually going to fall like they usually do? Or are they
hmm.
actually going to stand firm and be like, you know what, like we did it before, we ain't doing it again? In terms of Theo, that was so fascinating seeing
Yeah.
him basically tell his friend like, are you pussy though, like why are you so scared,
Yeah.
let's get the rationings. And obviously Brown was like, no, like don't, she's being a good mom. that's
Yeah.
that's a mother's in the home.
And then
She
she
was
said,
telling,
"We'll eat a rabbit for
we'll
dinner,"
eat
and
rabbit for dinner, like
he
you
was
gotta
like,
firm
"Nah,
it.
fam."
Nah fam, I want real
He
food.
was like, "Nah, fam. I want Mackey's, bro." Then she's
He's
saying, "There's rabbit at home."
like,
There ain't no
imagine
rabbit at home.
he was on that pre-workout joint. He was jacked
Yeah.
up. He was like, I'm gonna bench press today. But seeing him like that whole chasing with the orc and him hiding in the well, and when the orc goes, "Where did you get that from?"
Yeah.
I actually could do the deep voice because I had the flu.
Yeah.
But he was like,
Yeah.
"Where did you get that from?" As if like, he was proper shook, and I was like, the whole
Yeah.
time I was sitting there, and I was like, "This is brilliant. This is now making me scared because this kid having access to that is
Very
terrifying
powerful
me.
weapon. Yeah.
It's terrifying me, and it's gonna change him, and it's gonna affect him, and it's worse that no one knows that he has this thing. So it's freaking
Apart
me.
from that,
Apart
this
from
mysterious old man at the
mysterious old
end.
man in the end. So it's freaking me out. Like genuinely, because I'm like, it feels like it's my kid I'm watching.
Yeah. Oh.
Because I'm like, what are you doing, kid? Like, give it up. You're seeing this
Yeah.
red, yellow, flamey thing. Obviously, you're seeing the eye. I'm like, put the thing down, man. Like
Yeah,
these
bro.
kids,
Well,
yeah, bad kids. If that was me and I saw that, my black ass is putting that thing down and I'm going home and I'm praying. Are you crazy? Are you crazy? I ain't did with that juju stuff, man. I'm putting that thing
well,
down, running home. I'm praying to God. I'm repenting. I ain't missing the trumpet sound on Judgment Day for that nonsense. And this kid's like, oh yeah, let me put it here. Now it's got the mark on him.
no. So do you know what's funny? What's funny? I just thought of this is maybe we are the actual parents in this situation. The reason I say that is because it's going to sound a bit silly, but that child actor was not alive when Peter Jackson's trilogy came out. So these
Oh,
shapes, no, but I know it's like it's kind of like breaking the fourth wall. Well, not really, but sort of mixing realities. But what I'm saying is just kind of funny. We say that because we know that these shapes mean bad business. We see certain things and we're like, we know what that's going to turn into. So you better put that shit down. Whereas the kids like, it just looks a bit cool, so I'm going to keep it. So I do find that angle a little bit funny. But to more serious stuff, so I'll go over that section as well, only because I have a slightly different take about Adar. Now, I'm going to read what my actual notes actually said.
okay. I'm
When
excited.
this starts. I'm going to read it verbatim, and this is what happens when you're uh, day drinking. So I literally write, um, Adar can't be Sauron. He is an elf and he is beaten up. Oh my god, it is Sauron. If that watchtower is Barad-dûr, I will lose my mind. Did he have to catch the arrow? That was Aragorn caught the arrow. Now, the reason this might be a casual take because you've said there is absolutely no way he's Sauron. I'm not so sure. Only reason I'm saying that is because I mean they keep on teasing it, they keep on teasing it, they keep on teasing it. So like even when they did the previously on Rings of Power, they reminded us again of that elf saying Sauron has many different names. The first thing Arondir says is, "Why do the orcs call you father?"
Oh yeah.
Um, Adar says, I'm not a god, but I will be." Um, and there's a lot of foreboding there. And, like we discussed in the last episode, who's Sauron, who's the Witch King? And we said that they might be trying to misdirect us, albeit in a very obvious way, which isn't very good misdirection, because everything is now saying, like, at least to a casual fan, and unfortunately, when it comes to Second Age, I'm a little bit casual, and I'm like, well, could it be Father clearly the one that corrupted the orcs? I will be a god one day. Um, yeah, and then he's telling Arondir to go back to the village and tell them, uh,
Tell him that I
you
sent you.
yeah, I sent you, and tell them to swear fealty to me. Um, so I'm just wondering, man. I don't know. I've not watched any theory videos. I don't really want to because people that like know there are some people that know the second age like the back of their hand, and they'll probably be able to confirm. Maybe a bit like you, to be fair, where you're like, it's definitely not
The
Sauron.
thing is,
Definitely.
the thing with the Sauron thing, right? This is because
Mhm.
me and Mitch. Oh, it was Kaz. We were having this conversation, and
Okay.
I. He almost convinced me. I'm not going to lie. He almost had me. He almost had me. But in my head, I kept thinking, would they be that obvious? That's what.
Yeah, that's the
That's what.
thing.
That's the
That's
thing.
the thing.
And I keep thinking,
It's
it's
so on the nose, isn't it?
surely, like, I wouldn't be angry because
But it'll be
Sauron
a
is
rubbish reveal,
Sauron.
wouldn't it?
Sauron is Sauron. I stand villains, so I wouldn't be angry.
Yeah.
But it's too on the nose. I want to think a little bit. Like, when
Yeah.
you watch University Challenge and you get a really hard question, I want it to be so difficult. But then when I actually clock it, I'm like, okay, that's why.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
want it to be that I don't, if it's that on the nose, I'm going to be so annoyed. So I'm like, no. Like,
Yeah.
make me question it. I want it to be like a whole Where's Waldo thing of where,
Exactly.
who's Sauron? Like, I want it to be the point. Like, I think either, I don't know if they're going to start doing it in the fifth episode. I don't know if it's too late, but they've got enough dodgy people enough to sort of question who is it
Yeah.
not.
Who's who?
But I feel like they need to up the ante a little bit. Obviously, probably
Yeah.
when Galadriel gets to Middle Earth, we'll probably get a little bit more of it. But
Yeah.
I'll
For
explain
sure.
my wider criticism of the show at the end of the podcast when we go into ratings and stuff. But I just want to get to a point where I'm questioning, I'm looking at everyone like, are you Sauron? Are
Yeah.
you Sauron? Like, are you? Because he's such a liar.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
such a
Like
liar.
that's the only thing that will be so disappointing about this. I mean, I think that's a writing criticism in general anyway. When you're being misdirected, you don't want to know that you're being misdirected. So it's now like so on the nose with one person. It's like if you had a question to answer and there were two options and I don't know, you ask someone there, what is the correct option and they go, well, it definitely isn't that one. I promise you, it's not that one. And then, oh wait, reveal it was him, and it's just like, I mean, that's boring, right? There needs to be, that's what I'm saying. Like, if they want to, they can really mess with our minds with people like Halbrand and stuff like that. There's a servant of Morgoth right there,
Yeah.
to mess with our minds. Um, so yeah, the whole Adar thing, even though it's kind of cool because that episode was so on the nose, even putting the previously on Rings of Power, showing his face whilst talking about Sauron, it would be disappointing if it's not him. So I'm completely with you. Okay, great. Let's get into the ratings then. Obviously, there were elements of the show that did disappoint us. If we're being completely honest. But at the same time, Southlands and Arondir, as usual, have come to the rescue. Definitely the part of the show I'm most invested in. There was a really cool fight scene, or at least the chase scene, with the orcs and stuff. The music was perfect. The orcs genuinely look amazing. I mean, I think that's the thing that they have nailed. Whatever, why do I say whatever like that? Whatever people decide to think of the show. So yeah, Priscilla, what's the rating? What's the rating? What are you thinking?
I'm giving it uh 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10.
Six.
I think that
Fair.
the Ilsador storyline tanked. I think that as much as I love the Doors bit and it really did entertain me, it brought me great happiness. It didn't do enough to move the plot along. I think the only thing that saved it was the whole Southlands plot. That's why it gets a 6.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. Unfortunately, I mean, if there was no Southlands and we saw the Harfoots instead, then this would have dropped to a 3, maybe a 2. Unfortunately, um, yeah, like I don't feel. The thing is, I feel really good about the Southlands. Really, I feel good about the plot with Theo, Brownwyn, Aaron Deer. Like how I don't know if it's going to turn into a love interest situation. The fight scenes are really cool. Um, I will just shout out as well the reference to Sauron right at the end too, where the old man, said that they've both got the mark. Obviously, my Theo has the sword hilt that looks like the Tower of Barad-dûr, which is actually really cool. And also mentions that the stranger didn't not using the word stranger, but the sky falling, as I believe they described it, was a sign of Sauron coming and that they had to be ready. So that has made me be like, okay, this was a poor episode. It's a 6 out of 10. but I'm gonna watch next week. Like, well, we've also got a podcast to do, but I will like I will be watching next week. So um yeah, hopefully we see improvements. It's the second half. Hopefully, the director's given everyone a good kick in, and we'll see a better second half of the season. So
It better be the best thing since sliced bread. Like, I
yeah,
want it to be as good as the McFlurry I had today that I shouldn't have because I was sick. Like, it should have been that good. I want it to be that good.
it should be. Look, Tolkien has an amazing universe. He's created an amazing universe. There is enough stuff to work with here. We don't want fans being able to come up with better ideas than the experts and the ones with the ability to invest millions, where um, you shouldn't be outdone by fans. So yeah, I hope that's the message. But yeah, no, thanks for listening. So this has been another episode. Don't forget to follow us on podcast for dinner
You mean
on
popcorn for dinner?
Instagram. Sorry,
You mean popcorn for dinner?
what did I say?
Podcast for dinner.
I said, oh, well, I'm going to blame the rubbish episode. Right, okay. So popcorn for dinner on all platforms.